Robin, do you remember when we met and you, quite unexpectedly, pronounced that name to the Welsh town, the longest one in the world? Perfect.
Oh.
And
Are you sure you don't want to try pronouncing that station? You've been very good with long words this morning.
Clangfair, Pwigwing, Cloggery, Chai, Windrow.
Go.
Yes.
You want to give it a go?
Llanfair, Pwthwinky, Llantysilio, Gwyndrabydd, Gogeryth. There's something else. It definitely ends in go.
We're not leaving until you get it right.
Llanfair, Pwthwinky, Gogeryth, Gwyndrabydd, Llantysilio, go.
Play the music.
Hi, Robin, and welcome to the Joy Tuck Club.
Hello.
Again.
Thank you for having me. Technical challenges aside.
So it's very, very nice to have you on at last.
Thank you. Yeah.
We met, as we all have, through Twitter, trans Twitter, when it was a very, very pleasant...
Oh, yes.
Was it? It wasn't massively pleasant.
I've always had a relatively...
Trans Twitter was.
I've always had a relatively positive experience of it. I don't know what I did that was different, but I didn't... unless it's just that the sort of the bad stuff washed past me a little bit more. I was a bit more oblivious. I don't know.
Yeah, and it depends on how you engage. Like the other day, I started poking some turf. You know, you reap what you sow.
Recreational turf baiting.
Yeah, it was bilious bile.
Yes, Twitter has been responsible for a remarkable number of connections and friendships in this new world. It's I always have a certain affection for it as a result.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. Since Elon Musk took over, people have been abandoning Twitter in their droves, but I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because I do have a connection to Twitter.
Yes.
And I think it was someone, was it Captain Amy the other day, saying that she's not going to leave because when she started, it was such a big help to her, and she just can't imagine coming out now and looking for connections and not being able to find them because Twitter's such a hell site now. So she's hanging around, and I kind of feel the same.
I was speaking to somebody recently who's been out and within the trans community for a much longer time. And as the conversation had progressed, they said, "What? So did you not have a trans mother?" And well, no, I suppose in effect it was Twitter, which sounds much sadder than it actually was to experience. But because I was, in theory, my insight was actually just pre-pandemic. I really should have been part of an earlier group, but the first things that I was going to go to as part of working out what I wanted to do were the first things that were cancelled for lockdown. So essentially I'm pandemic trans, rather than but really I'm slightly before. And it was the social media connections that then made all the difference.
Can you say that again?
The trandemic.
The trandemic.
Yeah.
Because we were all on lockdown.
I came out in the pandemic, so I'm a trandemic baby as well.
That was just fortuitous. I was trying to say pandemic trans rather than trandemic pans.
No, trandemic works. It really appeals to my pun, the pun side of me. As in the fun side of me, which is a pun.
Spooning is always popular, but spoonerism can be fun too.
Oh, favourite spoonerisms. Our queer old dean.
So you were pre-pandemic?
Yes.
After the pandemic?
No,
Robin. Robin was pandemic. Literally, I was just before. I think I came out in March, and in March was when the lockdowns began.
Yeah.
I think I probably got one of the last appointments with the doctor.
Yeah.
Asking to be referred to the GIC, and then everything shut down.
Yeah.
All these support groups that I'd researched, they didn't exist anymore. And when we came out the other side, they didn't come back up.
Yeah.
It killed off a lot of support groups.
I came out during the pandemic, but towards the end of well, we're still in it in many ways, but
True.
towards the end of the main part,
Yes.
it caught me on the tail, though, because I'd flown across the US at the time from Connecticut to San Diego, and I was off to some meetings, except that I tested positive. I didn't feel great on the plane, and then I tested positive immediately. And so I basically just had to spend 10 days in a hotel room.
Oh.
Oh, gutting.
Yeah. Yeah, I let myself go out for half an hour a day to go find some takeaway food.
Did you have access to the correct clothes?
I did.
Perfect. I bet that 10 days were hell for you.
Exactly. Right.
There were no signs. There were no signs.
Ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after that little trip, I definitely knew what my future looked like. And it wasn't how my past had been at all.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think the pandemic had any influence on you coming out? Like, because like me, because, and I think a lot of people that came out during the pandemic, because everything shut down and they weren't going out and they were forced to stay indoors, it forced them to look inwardly, and also then they had more opportunity to explore.
Yes.
Do you think that's something that might have happened with you?
And
Or did it have the opposite effect, and you were like, "Oh no, I want to go out."
it just held me back. I mean, my insight was still in flux.
Yeah.
But yes, if I had been able to then immediately connect with the community rather than gradually have it build up, I mean, social media made the difference in the end. But yes, the lockdown just. Is this? Oh, this might be what's gonna, and then no, everything's on hold. It's terribly frustrating.
I think it ended up saving a lot of people it made it easier to socially transition because everything was on your own terms.
Oh yes,
You weren't forced to come out at work or something.
Yes.
Or make that leap. You could just, because you weren't going somewhere for the day and then presenting.
Oh, it was the rise of working remotely, and I just have this image of all these people that were eggs before the pandemic getting online, and the top half they're wearing a shirt and a tie, and the bottom half they've got a mini skirt and tights because no one can see it.
I was sort of undeclared to work for some time. It was sort of 50%. I mean, during the main pulse of the lockdown, I hadn't got there anyway. I wasn't actually properly beginning. I was realizing myself, but I hadn't told anyone. And then I feel like, as people familiar with my bio will have seen from ages now, it says I feel that I dissolved rather than cracking. There is no point where I can say, oh, it was that. I thought I had realized that I was gender fluid, that it was an aspect of my identity, but from my then understanding of what trans was, I didn't think I was trans because it didn't fit the cis presented version that's in the media.
Mm-hmm. Wrong body and all that.
I thought that gender dysphoria was knowing since you were 4 that you had a profound sense of being in the wrong body, and I know some people do experience that, but it wasn't my experience, and because I didn't associate with that, I didn't think I was trans. I knew there was definitely something other. I knew that my identity was not straightforward, and yes, I thought I was gender fluid. I thought I had a range of identity that I really ideally could do with expressing. However, to already been in a long-term relationship for a long time at the point that I realized this, and it's the sort of inevitably there is the fear, of course, but inevitably there's the feeling of trade-off as well. The idea that I wasn't trans, that it was only identity, and that, for the upheaval, and so thus not doing anything about it. And we came to an end sort of holistically and mutually, and actually not so. I am another divorced trans woman, but it's not actually because of the transition. We sort of come to an end naturally. We felt like we were complete, and it's if separation was going to happen, I would go so far as to say that we're fortunate in the way that it happened and it's worked out, and we really were better friends than we were spouses by the end of it. But it was then finding myself single. It was the question of, well, I have the opportunity to think about what would I do with this fluidity. It's striking how quickly afterwards, then looking at other people's stories and following people on Twitter, discovered the actual much broader and common experience of dysphoria of depersonalization and derealization, and feeling like you're living through a plate of glass and feeling like you're disconnected from your, combined then with, an interest and affinity in presenting to what was seemingly the opposite gender. And so yes, it was probably only over about the sort of course of 6 months that I realized, well, if I'm fluid, I want to flow in one direction and stay there. And then immediately interrupted by lockdown and things, and we had a very fortunate lockdown experience of being able to work effectively from home, and everyone in a house that was big enough to cope with everyone being home all the time. And it was a slow process of gradually then realizing, no, so it's not just a compulsion for pink and Barbie dolls from the age of 3, that this disconnection from oneself. And I once described it as it was like instances that something was happening and feeling like, if this thing that is happening to me were happening to me, I'd be feeling like this. But just, at a remove. The process of coming out itself then was sort of a gradual process, which reminds me what set me off in this direction. So I kind of consider the starting point to be end of June 21, because that was the first time then going out with friends, endeavouring to present in the way that I wanted to, and sort of slowly building up from then. So told family that needed telling directly, or I felt like needed telling directly. I mean, it's a question of how things are working individually. But for me, I told the ones that I felt like needed telling directly in August 21. And my parents were up, and because I live near Edinburgh and they still live near Manchester, where I'm from. And telling the children and telling the ex, and it all went very well.
It did.
And I've been very fortunate. It was funny telling the children, because my daughter was 14 at that point, and she pretty much went, "Yes, I knew it." And my son, who was
That's so smart.
8 or 9 at that point, says, "Okay, can we watch Ninjago now?"
Oh,
So it's been, I've been very, very fortunate with how it's gone.
yeah.
I feel like apart from taking so long to realize, and apart from, as a lot of us have to, funding as much of it as we can while we wait, I've had a transition experience that most people should have.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions about what you just said. You said you didn't have the cisgender perspective of what you thought being trans was, but did you always know that you were different? Was there always a little feeling?
Yes.
Because in my experience, I think that's the trans understanding of what it feels like to be trans.
Yes.
You don't know. You haven't got the words to put on it. You haven't got a label for it, but you just know something's off. And sort of how long had you felt that? Because I knew when I was 6 that I wasn't the same as everybody else.
I can remember. I think about the same. I can remember instances in terms of sort of thinking about remembering where I was when I was thinking what I was thinking, and it's certainly sort of mid-primary school, idly daydreaming of situations where I could present the other way, and definitely sort of primary school, definitely pre-puberty. Still can't sort of put a finger on where or on when, but it's definitely of that sort of
But
era.
You said you didn't experience the classic dysphoria, but once you identified yourself as trans, did you then get dysphoria?
Yes.
once you knew and had had a label for it.
Yeah.
Dysphoric experiences was for me was the depersonalization, the separation from myself. And looking back, I can definitely appreciate the sort of the low level background discomfort in many situations then that were in terms of sort of traditional male presentation. I suppose partly as the realization and the determination then to transition sort of unlocks something in that it's no longer hopeless. It's something discordant then that you might actually be able to change, which makes it more difficult to put up with, because it's something that maybe you could do something about instead of just being, oh well, it's just what I'm stuck with.
We've had that as a theme coming up, haven't we?
Yeah.
Once you can kind of put your finger on it, once you've identified it, you have a name for it, you have the ability to look it up and start hearing about other people's experiences, then it's very difficult to ignore.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, once it's got a name, it's very difficult not to do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's fine, you can live your life when you don't know, but once you know, it's like, this is going to it becomes unbearable.
Yeah.
So getting back to that first night out.
Yes.
How was that? Were you nervous? Was it euphoric? How did it go? Where did you go?
It was really good.
How much were you presenting? If you looked back on that night now from where you are, would it make you go, oh, what was I thinking? Or would you go, oh, I looked cute?
I've definitely...
I understand it, because I look back at early pictures of myself and I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I look like?
Oh my God, I look at photos of the night that we met and I'm just, what did you even see?
Yeah, I look back and think the same thing. You're just lucky you've got a winning personality. That's all I can say.
Oh no!
Have we burnt that velvet top?
I gave it away.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it went to charity.
Crushed velvet top.
Yeah. Thankfully, it didn't crush.
Oh, she's got huge tracts of personality.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that first night?
It was really good. Funnily enough, the process of starting to actually do something about it has ended up with through a conversation with one of my friends who's an incredibly cis guy, and he was tweeting trans supportive stuff on Twitter, and it led me to query do you have an interest in this area? Because I do. Mm-hmm. And as that his only interest in it is that he's genuinely a very good ally. He's genuinely a tremendous and well-intentioned and well-resulted cis ally. So yes, he's incensed by the unfairness of the situation that we find ourselves in, and sort of very much focused on the well-being of people is really great. And he was already relatively well connected to a number of aspects of the queer community, and said, first of all, if you want to go out anywhere, and I'll be your ally for that, and you need community. I know people to introduce you to too. And so we ended up going to restaurant in Glasgow and meeting up with a lovely NB that he already knew, who's then continued to be a friend since. And it was quite a secure and low stress first night, because I felt it was endeavouring to present completely. Felt really good at the time. I can certainly see how far I've come since. But I felt very secure in the people that I was going to, the two people I was going to have dinner with. Momentously normal, which is something that has struck me about the journey a number of times. It's, oh my God, this is happening. I'm actually doing this, and everything's completely normal. It's momentously normal. And the journey began in earnest from then. And so that was the very end of June 21, and started then also meeting the first trans woman that I met in real life as well in August 21, and starting with Gender GP. So I was referred to the NHS in August 21, and remarkably, I have actually now just been seen this last week. A speedy 26 months.
Congratulations.
It's
26.
It's,
no, that is quite speedy.
I mean, it's disappointing that the bar is so low that I can go, yes, only 26 months, but only 26 months.
Right.
So it's with Edinburgh GIC that the general sort of mood around them previously was that they tended to be one of the quicker ones. But I was expecting it to be 2024. I mean, and that was sort of pre-pandemic anyway. So I thought it was going to be August 24 before I got heard from them, rather than September, October 23.
I'm out as a teen, get seen as a senior citizen. That's their motto. We welcome you,
really
crutches, walking frames, one and all.
Have you spent time thinking about this? So I had the first appointment on Monday, and it was really good. I had heard good things about Edinburgh GIC, about the experience of it. Once people finally got to see them, I had heard good feedback so far of the people that our general cohort of recent years.
Yeah. So how was it? Did they take into account the fact that you'd already started your transition, or did they? Because I've heard stories of people going, I've been out and transitioning for 5 years, and I had my first appointment, and they literally took it back to the beginning and had to do the dysphoria diagnosis again and ignore the hormones because I'd been DIYing. So they put. We're
going to drop you down and build you up.
Put you on the classic NHS path of started on the lowest and up in every 3 months.
No, they were sort of practical about it, and understanding, that they needed to take notes on history because it needed to be logged into the NHS system, because there was a Xeroth interview to start off with in September, which was a remote one with just, hello, sorry you've been waiting. Are all the details correct? And what have you been doing in the meantime? So this was in person as the actual proper first interview. And you do have to have a diagnosis, because that's what then unlocks the process within the NHS. They have to have that box ticked. But yeah, they were as they should be. It's like, yes, you've been with these people. I see you're on hormones. We can we will check your levels now so that we've got it in our system. But have you been tested? Have the levels have been good? What methods have you been on? So yes, they did everything well. They did everything the way you would hope. So the immediate services that I can draw from them, it doesn't really make much change.
What services did I offer you then? So the voice coaching, do they offer that?
So there was taking on the HRT prescription and the monitoring through the local GP, because I've just been buying the HRT as a private prescription, and then they can provide the voice coaching and hair removal. I'm pursuing lower surgery myself, because the wait time for that would still be a lot longer than I can arrange myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the NHS route to lower surgery requiring the two psych letters, which then each have their own waiting list. So wait for one psychiatrist, wait for another psychiatrist, wait to see the surgeon, wait for any hair removal the surgeon feels necessary, and then get done. I'm coming to the conclusion I couldn't wait that long. So I'll continue to pursue that avenue myself.
Yeah. So you mentioned surgery, which is a nice sort of segue into, what surgeries have you had, if any?
Yes. So tell us, have you had any?
We all know, because we've followed you on Twitter, we all know you've had surgeries, but just for the uninformed.
Last year, just coming up on 1 year, I went for FFS. It wasn't for fuck's sake.
Sorry, for our cis listeners.
Facial feminization surgery.
Feminization surgery.
Yeah. And
yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't have my for fuck's sake in.
If that was going to, if for fuck's sake was going to refer to any surgery, surely it would be lower.
Oh, yes. Nice. Because FFS can mean many different things. Can you describe what it was for you?
Overall, I was on HRT, and I was definitely getting positive changes there. But I felt quite discordant with my face, with how your face changes with testosterone puberty. That the brow accumulates more bone.
Doesn't change back.
Even if the actual dimensions are very small, just the fact that shape is there, and the flattening of the top of the shape of the brows, and various trends in the nose and the Adam's apple. I must acknowledge I was quite fortunate in that I was in a position where individual aspects was still within the cis female range, but it's once the whole package is together of brow and nose and things that I had experienced, and so I didn't in my case.
Did that include the jaw as well?
For the listeners, obviously, a lot of people commonly find that also the jaw gets deeper, and then that is something that they look to reduce. So it became something that I really wanted to do, and could see the benefits that it brought to other people, and the joy that it brought to them, the results that they were getting as well, because inevitably there's sort of, well, can it really work with me? And you would occasionally see an account through the social media again where somebody says, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this, and you see them, you say, why are you doing this? And then you see the results, and oh no, they still did gain. And so I was looking into it, and was able to do it with Tea Change in Buenos Aires in October 22, which was a really great experience. Funnily enough, the thing that freaked my parents out, I mean, they don't know what the process is. I haven't told people what the process was, but the thing that freaked my parents out about it, because no, I can understand why you would want to do something like this. The thing that freaked them out was the concept that it was in Argentina, which is a much better functioning country than a lot of people in Britain think. I probably wouldn't have looked into them, but I'd been to Argentina for work and found that I really liked the place and found what it was really like. And I did speak to Marbella, but I knew that I wasn't going to be in a position to procure their services. And I was leaning towards Brighton, and who also have really great word of mouth. And it was just chance. It was the other trans experience of a Discord channel of somebody posting, well, I'm looking at Dr. Rossi in Buenos Aires, and posting their details. And their galleries were, obviously everyone's galleries are going to be encouraging, but their galleries looked good, and they were coming in very cost effective, such that I would have been suspicious. But I looked at loads of reviews, and they were all good. There's one negative one, which is somebody who's negative about everybody. They seem to have had a particular personal, presumably mental health issues, that they'd been to Mexico, they'd been to Buenos Aires, they'd been to Facial Team, and they were really complaining hugely strongly about all of them. And that was the only negative one I could find. Maybe about 30% of the people didn't like his bedside manner, but even they were still pleased with his results.
Do you think this person complaining had just unrealistic expectations? Because
yes,
right, you can't show a photo of someone that's different to you and say, make me look like them.
Yes, and so
it doesn't work that way. All they can do is remove what testosterone did.
Speaking of expectations, what kind of expectations were you hoping to get out of it? Did they sit down with you beforehand and give you some idea of how it might turn out, or they were a bit like
their approach? Certainly, that I experienced. I mean, I guess probably one could go to them with an explicit aesthetic request to say what can be done. But overall, their approach, and it's the one that I was looking for, as you describe, it's just take away what testosterone has accumulated as we can, and sort of it does feel like it's revealing. It felt like it was revealing my face that had been hidden behind the testosterone.
That's your experience as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly.
We'll find what's there, and it's very much because I did very much want to still look like me, and it's worked out just in the way that I'd hoped. I feel my results are quite natural, and I've reached the point where I look like siblings, the before and after pictures. Even the after starting transition, but before surgery, I look like siblings, and I feel that's for me. I feel that's the sort of effect, the sort of journey that I wanted. By that, I don't mean anything against people who want a more extreme process, who want a more pronounced look. But for myself, that's what I was looking for, and I'm so glad that I did it. It's been such a positive experience, and such a sense of security.
And your journey is, publicly available through Twitter.
Yes.
Your timeline.
Yes.
Lots of photos.
Yes.
And
never took photos in the before times. Phones full of them now.
None of us do. Yeah. I hated them. No one does. And now it's selfie heaven all the time.
Yes. Yes, so I have found myself becoming involved in performance, which kind of crept up on me. And I had previously done like science talks, sort of popular science type level talks and things, and I have liked doing public speaking. So one of the things that I wanted to do once I realised who I was and where I was going was as fun. I just realised I've got the T-shirt on. I had heard in the before times of Girls Rock School in Edinburgh, which is a free fundraising supported workshop that runs for 6 weeks, sort of 3 times a year in Edinburgh, and it's focused on the idea is to try and encourage the formation of more bands that are not cis male led. And so there are, through the 6 weeks, you can go and you can opt to do drums or bass or guitar or vocals. And the beginning of the 6 weeks, those groups are sequential through the evening. And then on the last one, it's like everyone's together, you play together. And everyone's been learning the same 2 songs. So there's that to do. And the jam at the end was really good, but it was a little bit watching the video. It's quite chaotic. I got lost. I couldn't hear myself. I did vocals. I opted to do vocals. Really, the obvious thing would have been drums, because I'm always compulsively drumming on everything. But it was just because I'd been looking at voice training and realized, well, I can match a note. So maybe I can sing. And so that led me to do the vocals, and was able to put together a bit of a band with another couple of people that had been through it at the same time, for the showcase that the rock school always has, a showcase sort of 2 or 3 months afterwards, which fortunately came after FFS. And it was such a good experience. It took a little while then to get round to doing something myself again afterwards. Just what's going to happen? What am I going to do? And started in July singing a cabaret, and then running 3 nights at the Fringe with my own cabaret with three friends who are all local, who were proper performers. When we started the Fringe, I had 4 minutes experience. They had actual experience. So now I've got 3 hours, 4 minutes experience. Well, a little bit more, because
what did you do there?
With the Fringe, so I was hosting, which meant that I was doing stand-up, and I hadn't quite realised I was doing stand-up. It crept up on me, and we had a drag king, we had comedy poetry, we had a really excellent individual socialist singer with the guitar. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of them. They're really good. And so for my bit, I was doing the same song again, which is Amanda Palmer's Vegemite, which is a wonderful song. It flows like a normal ballad, but it's about how we fit together so well. Everything's so great. So how can you like Vegemite? And then about how bad Vegemite is.
Do you like Vegemite?
It tastes of sadness. It tastes of batteries. It tastes of asses. One of the funny things was singing that in a queer venue meant that the asses then go, woohoo! Instead of a noise of disgust.
Can you please compare Vegemite to Marmite?
There is no comparison.
There must be one, even if it's
the song does. That's why she's so traumatized about Vegemite, is that, well, when she was 6 years old, the babysitter made her eat an entire spoonful of Marmite, which is just like Vegemite, except it's even grosser. And they made me eat it by telling me it was chocolate fudge. So I had to swallow the whole thing. So I swallowed the whole thing, and I had to run to the bathroom and throw up. And it really traumatized me. And I'm sorry I got so emotional, because there's a rant in the middle of the song. It's great. And we had a group song that we'd written, which was about the moment of fear and trepidation when someone you like starts trending. It's called Dead or Problematic. And then I myself reinvented Victor Borg's phonetic punctuation and phonetic.
Go on.
For those unfamiliar with the routine, and because I'm slightly older within the queer community, essentially it's everybody. Yes.
Well, it's Victor Borg. Come on, I mean, there's an age cutoff, I think, for Victor Borg.
He had a
I'm sorry, I'm too young to get this reference.
He has a number of really ingenious musical and word-based routines that he then reproduced word for word, including the ad-libs, for a couple of decades. So one of his was phonetic punctuation, and we wanted to redo it, didn't want to copy it, so we created a new text for it. But it is that when we speak, we're not necessarily clear about the understanding always, whereas when we communicate through writing, we have punctuation marks. So it's the concept of, let us introduce punctuation marks into our speech so that we can make sure that the meaning is clear. We have the comma, the full stop, and the full stop, of course, lets us put together more advanced punctuation, such as the exclamation mark, the question mark, which is a little bit more challenging, and of course the ellipsis. And it's lovelily silly, and most of the audience haven't heard of it before, so I didn't lay claim to it, but people were saying, "That's great! How did you come up with that?" But when our 3 shows were done, I discovered that I really, really would have wanted more than just 3 shows. Seeing other things in the fringe. You need audience participation? I'm there. Give me more. So
you knew this was your passion, but perhaps not how big a passion it was.
Did you feel the draw towards the arts in the before times? Did you have any inkling that this was inside you?
I endeavoured to write stories.
Or is this
really.
new ground since transition?
I can certainly see that it's partly what I liked about the science presentations and the public speaking was actually just getting to show off.
But do you think now that you're happy with your appearance and who you are, that you're happy for other people to see that? And this is something you never would have considered before.
When something so fundamental that has seemed an impossible dream is actually realised, I guess it makes you more willing to consider that other things are possible too.
You had a similar experience, right, in the transformation that occurs. It's not a change in personality, for example. It's actually letting something out that was always within.
The release.
Yeah. I think, because when I was younger, I was always the centre of attention, cracking jokes and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think I went through my teens, and then it was like, oh, I don't want people to see me anymore, and sort of faded into the background.
Yeah.
And now it's like someone's coloured me back in.
Yeah.
And it's like, hi. My
so
confidence is just...
It's interesting how...
before I didn't have any confidence, yeah.
The trans people seem to end up then doing something, gaining some creative outlets or some sort of performance outlets post-transition.
Yeah, we truly become ourselves.
Well, if you ask Graham Wynham, though, there's no trans arts, no trans creativity,
no movies, no music, no.
You might end up doing a podcast or something.
Well, you might do. God, imagine that. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Right?
I could never imagine myself doing a podcast.
No. Maybe we can work up to it.
Maybe.
Hey, baby steps. Yeah. So did you notice a change in acceptance at work, jumping all the way across?
Oh, yes. That's been great.
Yeah.
I maybe mishandled it a little bit.
How so?
I was undeclared for a long time. Partly, it was sort of 50%. It's 2022. I don't have to say anything, and 50% being scared, of course. So I was up to a year of HRT over the sort of 15 months that I'd been involved with the place. It had started off when they were still in lockdown measures, and I'm doing design engineering. So as a contractor, so I do a lot from home, and I would only need to be in if I actually having to deal with real hardware.
Is that a very male-dominated environment?
It is, yes. Yeah. Overall, the company is reasonably mixed, but certainly directly with the hardware side is very male dominated, and but it also meant that I was always just in overalls, and I've always been off the bottom of the normal overall scale, so they're always baggy, and so I was infrequently in completely shapeless clothes. And it was coming up to Buenos Aires, and I thought the way people know that I'm going to be away, if somebody asked, "So where are you going to go? What are you going away for?" Well, and then I would tell them. And I was also contracting for another company at the same time, and that worked.
Yeah.
Well, I am actually transitioning, and I'm going for this surgery. In the main job, however, the only time somebody said, "So, where are you going?" it was at the end of a meeting. And immediately a whole group of people turned up, standing at the front of the meeting room, staring at us all because we were late and they wanted the meeting. And I just couldn't do it at that moment. Of probably about 20 people of between the two meetings. So I'm going to Argentina. And that's the company that I've worked in Argentina for in the past. So I think they probably just thought it was related to the power stations.
Yeah.
So I arrived back a month later, post FFS, still recognizable, but different. And came in a blouse. So my figure was visible, my boobs were visible. I had a different face, and didn't say anything.
You didn't officially announce your coming. You didn't have an official coming out. You just
people just carried on as normal. Really, as you would hope in that situation. It's an open plan. It's an open plan hot desking office. I had been trying to avoid the office bit previously, and discovered that I'd ended up picking a seat next to the loudest mouth person, the person that if there was going to be anything, that was who I expected. And they just they were having a bad time with the project that they were working on, and they just came, and just went into a typical sort of frustration with work. Don't know why you keep coming back to this place. It's like, a typical frustration with work rant. And again, just completely normal. And I did email afterwards and said, I probably should have said something beforehand, but this has happened. And thanks everyone for being, well, it was only to the people that I was working for. Thanks to people for being normal. And
yeah,
there's a little bit of habitual he's just because I've worked with this place since 2008. So some people have known me for quite a long time. So there's definitely habitual. There's no malicious misgendering. The occasional habitual one. And I ended up working. I ended up doing some site work at the beginning of the year, which was 6 weeks at a power station on night shift, which is the biggest job that they do. It's safety inspections. So when the power station's being refueled and serviced, all these critical bits get inspected. So there's a team of maybe 60, 70 people over day shift and night shift. And I was doing night shift technical support. There were only 2 women on the night shift, and there was only 2 women on the day shift out of this big team. And there was not the slightest problem. Everyone was using she, her. So apart from the occasional one from people that have known me for a long time. And I was quite confident overall in the team, but there's a fair number of leery Glasgow lads that, while I didn't expect any prejudice from, I thought there might have been some banter. There was none. All these people just went straight over to she, her. And
I don't call it banter. I call it.
I see.
I call it tranter.
Excellent. Yes.
Translated banter that only I can get away with saying.
Right. Do you have an example handy?
Not really, but it pops up at work, and my friend at work is just like, "Oh, great tranter."
You can say that, but I couldn't possibly.
No one else could say it to me, but because I can say it.
Yeah.
I call it tranter.
So we jumped from your performing and, that passion that I imagine you think about far more than your actual
it's
work.
I'm curious as to see how things are going to end up, because I was previously always looking for creative fulfillment in work and in innovation there, and I would have, for a long time, what I wanted to do was to have like a startup built around my own inventions or something. And I ended up working for 3 years in launch vehicles, in essentially a startup, because I actually started in rocket engines, satellite launch vehicles. Reactors and rockets. I feel like I'm carrying out my engineering career in the 50s. So really, being in theoretically senior position in a satellite launch vehicle startup should have been the absolute ideal.
The apogee.
And yes, indeed. I do feel that transition is like that, actually. It's like suborbital spaceflight. It takes a lot of energy to spend a few minutes past the Kármán line to start off with, and then you get better and better, and you spend more time up at there until eventually at some point you achieve orbital velocity and are always there.
Oh, but not geostationary. We move around too much.
Yes.
I mean, you can't stay, you always, like you say, if you stand still.
Yeah, it's harder to hit a moving target.
Yeah. That's it.
That's right.
But yeah, so it should have been the ideal. And launch vehicle companies tend to fold. They haven't. They're doing very well.
Yeah.
And so my thought at the beginning was, oh well, I know the investors now. I can always see about my wave energy device as a startup. And I rapidly discovered that I'm not suited to anything corporate or management. I struggle to manage myself. So that sort of thing that I thought I would have wanted to do, it just doesn't fit. I'm awaiting assessment for ADHD, another neurodivergent trans.
Yeah.
Remarkably, interestingly, I've managed to get into the GIC quicker than I've been able to get ADHD assessment.
What?
I didn't see that one coming. With transition, so I got to the point of being sick of what I was doing. I didn't want to be. And it was coincidental then that I left them to go and do this contracting back with the company that I had been working with before. Very much as a bill paying venture.
Yeah.
Get money as efficiently as possible with as you know, without it being a vocation. And I'm conscious that it may be that the transition is the project, because I always had something that I was thinking I was working towards and never actually getting there. Sort of human-powered airplane project and trying to interest people in electric vehicle startup and wave energy generator and innovations in robotics. And
instead of working on yourself.
Yes. And actually, in practice, I think because of the ADHD, they never went in it. None of it ever happened. I continued working as an employee and getting good results as an employee, but none of that stuff actually ever came off. And I haven't thought in that way since. Yeah, and I don't know if it's that the transition is the project, and that once I know there's the question of does it ever finish, but we do get to a point of stability later on. So maybe I will think that way again once I get to that point. I don't know.
Well, I was told the other day that my transition was finished by someone at my GP's. Yeah, my practice manager.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah.
You're Rachel. You're done transitioning.
I feel like there should be cake.
Yeah. Bless you. Yeah, it is that simple. You just transition, then you're done.
Yes.
Nothing else to do.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice you'd like to share with a freshly cracked egg?
Oh, yes. Yes. I haven't heard the most recent interview yet, which I'm really looking forward to hearing, but I heard Maya's, and I would definitely reiterate what she said about community.
Oh, you mean our podcast?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, yay.
This lovely new podcast I can recommend.
Yeah.
So definitely the community, and as we found in our peculiar period of time of coming out, it was such a lot of it for me was Twitter, but it was still community.
Yeah.
It was still it was still what unlocked the insight, because then it was a route to other people's descriptions and stories. I was trans by Twitter. So community, ideally real community in person. That's definitely better, but the online communities are hugely important, and while
Probably easier to access
Yes,
as well, because, you know, if you're a
definitely.
freshly cracked egg,
Community is definitely the
probably
place to begin.
lacking a bit of confidence.
Yes.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
We haven't offered this, but if anyone out there is listening who wants a little boost into the trans Twitter community,
Yeah.
DM us and
Yes.
we'll do it.
Absolutely.
At Too Damp Trans.
The other thing I would say from a trans woman perspective is get your brows done. So community and brows
Makes such a
because
difference.
It's just
Yeah.
extraordinary the difference the eyebrows make. Possibly a fringe, depending on how you're feeling about it.
Maybe.
The first I guess you two have experienced the same. That's just the first feminine haircut was an extraordinary experience, and really a sudden change of visual.
Yeah.
And the brows, they're subtler, but the eyebrows definitely almost as significant as the haircut, even before HRT and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have fond memories of my first haircut. I actually had it done in Brighton.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know if you did this thing, but I was so worried about going to a hair salon and, you know, them thinking, man, get out, you don't belong here.
Yeah.
And I kind of had a Pretty Woman experience in one of the local ones. I did my research online and everyone was saying how great they were. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just book it online because I didn't want to turn up and them see me and go, oh, sorry, we don't cut men's hair in here.
Yeah.
So I tried to make the appointment at the shop and I went in and I knew they had appointments for that day because I checked online, but I just wanted to sort of say that I'm trans and I want a friendly stylist or whatever.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I said, can I make an appointment for Saturday? And she's like, well, let me just look. After giving me, like, looking me up and down, tapping on a keyboard, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for that day. And it was a little bit like, you know, when Julia Roberts goes into the shop in Pretty Woman. You don't, because you've probably not seen it. You socially, not socially. You pop culture stunted Phoebe over there.
But it's improving thanks to your.
Yeah, but every time I walk past that shop now, I want to go back in there and go, you know what? A couple of years ago, I wanted to get my hair cut. You said no. Big mistake.
Huge.
I just spent £130. I just spent £130 having my hair done in the one down the road. So my first one was actually in Brighton. You know, if you want sympathetic stylists who are going to treat you like any other woman, then go to Brighton.
I posted on one of the queer apps to say, can anyone recommend anywhere in Edinburgh? And everyone said the same one. And so I called up, just because some people may know I'm curly. Working with my curls has been part of my transition in itself, and I think it's probably a descriptor a lot of people would use about it, curly. So I called up to say who would be the person to see about curly hair, and they said, "Oh, this person." I arrived to discover that they were also a trans woman, so that was lovely, and that was just chance. And so I've been to her since, and have moved salon with her as well, because it was just been such a such a lovely experience, and she's great. And what was really wild that week actually was I was not out to. That was August 21. That was told my children, had not yet been able to catch my parents in person to tell them. So some friends knew. I got invited out by some friends from the launch vehicle company. We're going to see something in the Fringe. Would you like to come along? I said, yes, definitely. And so this meant nominally going back to boy mode for the first time after the haircut. But I had red nails and this haircut, quite similar to how it's looking currently. And the thing that we ended up going to see was the Ladyboys of Bangkok. So that was particularly surreal, that of all things, to be a trans woman needing to go out as a guy, going to see. And funnily enough, the main friend of that group that I'd been working with the previous 3 years then messaged the following day and said, "So, can we expect any changes from you?" And so they're the only person to have specifically guessed and asked about me, and it's with the hair and nails that I was, and otherwise in sort of the typical black trousers and going out at night shirt. It's like, maybe this person's on a journey. It's, yes, I am.
Starting to get Victor Victoria vibes. Yeah.
Well, looking back, it's I remember one of the other Twitter accounts, sort of the year ahead of me. Sort of the previous year had been posting "How's my boy mode," and you'd look at the pictures and think, "What boy mode?"
Yeah.
And I realised I'd reached that same point.
That happened quite a lot, yeah.
Before, although I hadn't told work, it's there's a few hundred people in the building. I think the people that knew me before were oblivious, just because I always tended to have longer hair for some reason. And I think everyone that didn't know me just thought I was a woman in overalls. I think my boy mode had long broken. I didn't see it. It's like I didn't pass to me, but I was to other people.
I think being trans is different to, because if you're gay or queer and you come out, or you choose not to come out, it makes no difference to anybody. But I think as trans people, we come out more for ourselves. So we're letting people know this is who I am, so you should treat me this way now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that I need to tell you, but I'm telling you this so that you see.
So if you're going to be a decent human being, you know how to treat me, and that'd be really nice, thank you. Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a surprising number of people online don't want to do that, but that's not reflective of the real world.
No, it really isn't.
No.
Thankfully.
We should probably start wrapping this up.
Okay.
You always have a question that you ask.
I do, yeah. In time-honoured tradition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just have one, in Columbo style, actually. Just one more question.
Oh, no. On the spot.
Any regrets from transition?
Just the typical. Just wished I'd done it sooner. I mean, I didn't understand. I couldn't have done so.
Yeah.
I have the sort of slight cognitive dissonance of trans parents everywhere that, I could only go back so far and still have the people in my life that I do. But yes, I really wish that I had been able to do it sooner. There's about 10 years that I could have done it sooner. It's, still want to end on that, but it's sort of often dealing with the grief of the missed time. However, to build up again, it's
the existential grief.
It's been
bring it back up again
to transition. Of course, life could have been easier to have just been cis in one way or another, but I do feel like it in itself is such a remarkable journey, and it's a great experience. The only problem with being trans is other people. The transness itself is actually good, because we have lots of things available now to mitigate the discordance that we find. So yes, to have experienced both sides,
and we experience a richer journey too. I can't imagine what it would be like. I know that just being cis would likely be all else being
It also just seems such a boring one.
It does kind of.
I don't
know.
All three of us have sampled that, and all three of us have gone, no, not for me.
Yeah.
I want something a little bit more fruity, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's sweet and sour.
Yeah, no,
a rich tapestry of flavours.
But it's a rich tapestry.
And metaphors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have one final question. One final one.
Yes.
Will the world be seeing your fringe at the Fringe next year?
I'm not entirely sure what it will be as yet. I definitely want to do more. And I'm also pursuing some of the comedy aspects as well as some of the music. So I might. There's the chance that I might be in more than one thing. So I hope it's great.
Well, I think the world needs to see more of Robin.
I think it does.
Yeah. Well, Robin, thank you so much for being on the Joy Talk Club. It's been a true pleasure and
An honour.
Sure, and an honour and a privilege.
And a privilege.
To wit.
Thank you for having me on. It's been lovely to speak to you as ever.
Well, and I feel that lots of people are going to get a lot from having heard your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was that my final word?
That one is.
No.
No, that one.
No.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
There we are.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks.
All right.